Dobry wieczór Państwu.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome
Remembrance and Future Forum,
at the summary of Remembrance and Future Forum, the first edition of this project. We've been dreaming to have this summary here live in the Centrum Historii Zajezdnia, face to face in real life. However, we are meeting each other online, which is caused by a situation we are all aware of. The pandemics, different constraints make us still meet, however, in this very form, slightly surreal. Welcome to our speakers who will greatly contribute to our meetings, especially Jacek Dukaj. Meeting him is the last point in our Remembrance and Future Forum. Edwin Bendyk was to be here with us. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us. He stayed in quarantine, self-isolation, but he's watching us online. That's our new reality. And myself, I'll do my best to substitute for him. A warm welcome to our online public. We were to have here different representatives of this European platform of conscience. There's only one. There were to be with us, to join us, some groups from Kominek Forum, and they are not here, but a warm welcome to them, because I hope you are watching us.
I bless you, I kiss you, greetings. Zapraszam w przyszłym roku.
So welcome to join us next year, hopefully face to face in real. So again, a warm welcome. We'll first hear summarizing first presentation summarizing Remembrance and Future Forum, and then the clue will talk about solidarity after writing with Jacek Dukaj, and we'll have time for that until 7 o'clock. So, summary of the first edition of Remembrance and Future Forum. Solidarity is one and another person, never one against another. So this slogan dominated the work of our institution in 2020. These words were first said in 1927 by Jean-Paul II, and solidarity, in historic terms, was born in Pomerania, but also here in Wrocław, in this depot at Grabowczyńska Street. We are here today. Solidarity was one of the most important events in the history of Poland and Wrocław. Solidarity are people who merged in resistance against communist oppression and fight for freedom. Solidarity and its history are a very inspiring story. What a group of people can do, this is a story, if they decide to act together, unite for one superior value. This is why we started talking about that at the 40th anniversary of the emergence of solidarity. And in this history of strikes from 1970 that took place in this very place, in our depot, we were trying to find stories that could inspire us also today.
Panowie, musimy podjąć jakąś decyzję. Co robimy?
Ladies and gentlemen, we need to take a decision. What do we do? Do we go on strike or do we stay here? Some drivers already left. But we are not going to work where everywhere they are on strike. Not only here, but also in strike. We should be solidarity. I've been asked why we are not striking. People in the city, they want us to go on strike. Everyone is counting on us. If we go on strike, the whole city will stop and everyone will follow us, or the police will beat us, and maybe we'll lose our jobs, maybe we'll be imprisoned. However, it's better than stay aside. What are these different secret meetings? Get to work. We have more important things to do. Get to your bosses. This is your job. Go to the city. Not today, Madam Manager. Today we have something more important to do. What? We are on strike. That's the thing. So the depot goes on strike. This is what happened 40 years ago. This is what happened 40 days ago. And today, not very far from us, citizens of Belarus, they need our solidarity. In our country, there is a social conflict that is raising. It could be overcome with solidarity as well. The whole world needs solidarity. The developing world who suffers hunger and oppressions, future generations need our solidarity. Climate issues, war or peace, wealth or poor future, wealthier future generations. We all need solidarity because sooner or later, in some circumstances in one's life, we'll need to face only together with others. We need to be united in solidarity. We can observe it now from pandemics. And from the history of Poland, we can learn how to be in solidarity. And this is what we debated during our Remembrance and Future Forum. Unfortunately, the pandemics didn't allow us to meet here in Grabiszyńska Street depot. Instead of that, we were able to carry out a quite successful project online. We collected several important speakers, intellectuals, philosophers who discussed what solidarity was in historical times and what it can be today. Our meetings online was viewed by 2,700 viewers, and we had 18 speakers from 10 different countries, France, Lithuania, Romania, Poland, of course, and some others.
Bonjour, je vais vous parler maintenant, comme convenu, de la solidarité et de l'Europe.
Hello everybody, my name is Antoine Arjakovski. I am French, I am working in Paris at the Collège des Bernardins, and I'm research director at the Collège des Bernardins. And I'm glad to speak with you about this subject, Europe after the virus. What should we do?
Buongiorno a tutti, mi chiamo Simone Zappellaro e sono ambasciatore dell'organizzazione non governativa milanese Gariło.
Witam serdecznie. Jestem Mikołaj.
Welcome, my name is Mikołaj Ivanov. I'm a Russian who has been living in Poland for nearly 40 years and who spiritually has already become a Pole. So these are some of our speakers. Thank you for everyone who was involved. Thank also to our partners, the Platform of European Memory and Conscience. They are going to present some of their presence. Welcome to Łukasz Kamiński, the president of this organization, who unfortunately couldn't join us today. Thank you to our Kominek Forum members, people from different corners of the world. They developed their original form of international dialogue, very close to solidarity. So a warm welcome to Marek Mutor, who animated, to Błażej Duber, who animated all that, and several other people, our translators, the Ministry of Culture and Development. Without them, all this couldn't have happened. So starting anew is the title of next Remembrance and Future Forum in 2021. Now came the time to describe what happens next year, hopefully here in History Center Zajezdnia. We are going to present the history of Wrocław just after war, when in our city the life had to be reborn on debris. When we dealt with coexistence of Poles who came here, either willingly or not, and Germans who were still not resettled, so they had to live here for several lives. A history of great destruction, communistic oppression and crime and uncertainty of tomorrow. Simultaneously, a history of great vivacity of people who are trying to find a place in the world, who try to start from scratch. In this history, we'll try to find some inspiration and a hint on how to respond today, how to respond to our problems today. Why? Because there are several places today when we need to start from scratch, either in great conflicts or other issues. Perhaps as humankind, we'll need to start from scratch after this pandemics. And next, Remembrance and Future Forum, the second edition of this undertaking, will be dedicated to. It will hopefully be launched in spring next year, hopefully in Zajezdnia History Center. I would like to invite you to join it, encourage it to join it. We'll find some new information by the end of December this year. I think there will be several interesting discussions, which will also provide space for inspiration and exchange for everyone. And I'd like now to wish you a very nice evening, good meetings, also online, and you can follow our meeting on Facebook in Polish or interpret it simultaneously in English. Now I'll ask Jacek Dukaj, the animator, promoter of Kominek, European and Memory Conscience platform that was combined with Remembrance and Future Forum, although it is the 5th edition of this event.
Good evening, and thank you very much. Let me start with praising the host of today's meeting, namely the Remembrance and Future Center, for having us here this evening, this afternoon, today. And by us, I mean all participants and alumni of Bolesław Kominek European Youth Forum. If it wasn't a COVID-19 pandemic, we should all have been here right now together, sitting in this room, having a regular debate. But apparently, unfortunately, it's not the case. But I know you are guys out there, and I want to welcome you very cordially. Maybe you can leave the comment under the post with the broadcast so that the others will see you somehow and might react to your presence and to what we are now presenting. Bolesław Kominek Youth European Forum is the project that has been conducted jointly by the Young Republic Foundation and the Remembrance and Future Center since 2015. What enabled us to make, you were right, Marek, five full editions, but actually this year, the 6th edition should have been right now happening. Unfortunately, we were not able to meet in person, but this is a 6th year of the project. With the forum, we are aiming to universalize the history of Wrocław, the historical experience of people living here and of this place. And we are trying to explain this history to our friends from different countries and regions in Europe. Normally, we spend 3 days in the city of Wrocław, and then we go to Brussels, and we continue having our meetings inside the EU institutions and other organizations based in Brussels. For some of the editions, for some of the years, we were able to add some extra places, and with visiting, for instance, 1 year we went to Krakow and some other regions. The starting case in our methodology is, of course, the process of reconciliation between Polish and Germans that took place here in this city after the Second World War. But later, we are trying to take these lessons learned from this case and somehow transformed these lessons, implement these lessons into the present day, into the current challenges that that our continent is facing. While doing so throughout these years, we have been taking the inspiration from the example of Bolesław Kominek. And not only him as an author of the 1965 reconciliation letter, but also as a person. And I want to underline it. Every year we have this seminar delivered by Marek, where we take a closer look on Bolesław Kominek as a person, as a leader who we believe was a leader who based his leadership on the values in which he truly believed. The second thing I want to underline is that during the project, we are trying not only to give the participants some portion of knowledge, but we also put a lot of attention to the experience that we all trying to get together while being together, while having workshops, while having the meetings in so many different places. With this project, we've been trying to reach out to young, ambitious students, future and current leader, and with a lot of joy, I must say that we've been quite successful in this regard. Among the alumni of our project, some of them now work for their governments, their national governments. Some of them decided to join some international organizations. Others decided to establish a new companies, their own business. Some of them stayed at the universities or in the non-governmental sector. But we've been all have this wonderful experience to meet them in person, and we are trying now to stay in contact, also in pandemic. I've made a list of all the countries that were somehow participating through their representatives in our project, and I hope most of them are now watching us so they can remind a little bit their experience in Wrocław and in Brussels and in other places before the pandemic. So let me name the list. It was Ukraine, Austria, Slovakia, Slovenia, Poland, United Kingdom, Portugal, Belgium, Germany, Slovenia, the Republic of Ireland, North Macedonia, China, Belarus, Italy, Georgia, the Netherlands, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Lithuania, and Luxembourg. All the greetings to all of us. I really miss you guys, and I hope we will meet each other soon again. And I'm very happy to give this short presentation jointly with my friends, with Lera and Raquel. Unfortunately, the stable connection, live connection, was not possible, but ladies have recorded their interventions, and we have been able to have it now here. So first, maybe I would like to give the floor to Raquel with her thoughts and her testimony. Please, Raquel.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raquel Ferreira, and I'm here to share with you some of my thoughts and my experience with the forum. I participated in the 2017 edition of it, and as you might know, the project had a few differences in the schedule and the way it was structured throughout the years. In my case, it started in Brussels and it ended in Wrocław, and we had a few visits in between, namely Auschwitz and Wadowice. I'm sorry for my Polish pronunciation. But yes, since I was invited to speak to you about my experience, a few memories came very strongly to me. And I think that's thanks to the way the project was organized. And I'm immensely thankful for it, because actually we had a very busy schedule. We had lectures and workshops and sometimes films, and yeah, between the visits as well, from the morning to the evening, and it was very intense in terms of work and agenda. But it feels like it doesn't really feel like the traditional way of learning, because sometimes, even if we were just listening to someone or reading through things, at the end of the day, most of the things were about actively exchanging and discussing and bringing our own input and opinion about things and developing it together. For example, I remember the debates we had to elaborate on a final document, And sometimes these debates could get quite warm and quite tense because of the way we interpret nuances and terminology and the communication. But it was so interesting to see the importance of knowing how to pass our own message and to concede sometimes to the others and to come to a common agreement. I also remember the city game we did in Wrocław. It was kind of a quest that we were supposed to find a few spots as a group and learn in each spot. And I think I can speak for the whole group when I say these kind of memories really stick for the life. And yes, I think, the most important thing of this process, and I really, really believe in this project for it, was about learn by doing, I think. And I'm really thankful for the power it had on me and my fellows of creating change and showing how we can come together with a common purpose and learning from the experience of others, from the history above all. And I think that's what we need also to create change with the modern issues we have. And I think this was the whole point of the project. And thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it, because I think it was a really, really important experience for me.
Thank you very much, Raquel. Greetings, I know you're watching us. Same for Valeria. Valeria originally is from Ukraine, but now is based in Germany at the University of Göttingen. So, Göttingen. Please, Valeria, meet Valeria now.
Hello everyone, here's Valeria, and thank you so much for the chance to be a part of the Congress. Even though I would much prefer to be in Wrocław right now, I'm still thankful for the chance to share my experience with Bolesław Community Youth Forum, even if it has to be online. So as a political science student, I was honored to participate in 3 parts of the forum in 2015 and 2016. Mainly 2 were held in Wrocław and 1 in Brussels. And after getting to know the basics of the reconciliation topics, we as a participants got a chance to travel to Brussels to deepen our knowledge. And for me, it was the first time visiting the capital of Europe, meaning that it only made my experience more meaningful. So during those days, we both visited such institutions as Polish Embassy or Parliamentarium, but we also had our seminars held in the actual building of the European Parliament, which was pretty awesome, to be honest. And what was really remarkable is the total connections of the topics of those topics being discussed in Brussels and Wrocław. So for me, it made it quite clear that Brussels actually is the capital of Europe and European Union, where a matter of every nation is heard and being taken seriously. And during those 3 days, we've had a chance to talk to and to listen to intellectuals and politicians from different levels and from different areas of politics. And all of them reassured us that the reconciliation, the remembrance, and the further cooperation between nations are taking place, and it's only getting better from here. So, even though it's been some time after my participation in Forum, I still have in mind the exciting agenda that we lived through, so to say. And what was really important for me is that there were enough time to not only for output from those people who are dealing with the issues on day-to-day basis, but also there was enough place for us as participants to share our thoughts and to share our thoughts about what we've heard and what we've seen previously. And it's also worth mentioning that activities that were planned after our seminars, mainly further interactions in the coziest restaurants in Brussels, because I believe that it's even though it's really important to have these formal events planned for the biggest part of the day, it's really important to go further and just to talk informally, and we've had more than enough chances to do so, both in Brussels and in Wrocław. So I'm really proud to be a part of the Bolesław Community Youth Forum, because the work that is done there is really important, and especially nowadays, because there is this unique combination of high quality discussions and just the idea and the presence of this connection, of this nation connection. And this connecting nations is just taking place during these 3 or 4 days on a new modern level. And I'm really thankful to be part of this connection. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the forum.
Thank you, Valeria, and thank to all of us for your attention on behalf of the whole group. And now I give back the floor to the next speaker, please.
Dzień dobry, witam wszystkich.
Welcome
Chciałbym
everybody.
opowiedzieć trochę o projekcie Justice 2.0 oraz o działaniach Platformy Europejskiej Pamięci i Sumienia i współpracy Platformy z Ośrodkiem Pamięci i Przyszłości. Jednak, aby dobrze to zrobić, muszę się cofnąć trochę w czasie. W 2009 roku Parlament Europejski w rezolucji określił, że Europa nie będzie zjednoczona, jeżeli nie potrafi wypracować własnego wspólnego poglądu na
in 29 European parliaments decided that Europe will not be united unless it won't be able to form a common view on its history, recognize Nazi Stalin's and fascist and communist regimes as a common legacy, and bring about an honest and thorough debate on their crimes in the past century, unless they raise awareness about these crimes. So this could be done by documenting and gathering legacy. So the conclusion was clear: without the remembrance, there is no chance for reconciliation. And through this resolution, we got the platform for our platform of European Remembrance and Conscience. So our status was to strengthen the memory of Europe, initiate a broad discussion on reasons and consequences of totalitarian governments. Initially, the platform had 21 founding members, public institutions and non-governmentals. At the moment, there are 62 different organizations from 20 different countries, not only European countries, and not only those from the eastern part of Europe. One of our main projects that was initiated in 2014, it is Justice 2.0. It aimed at documenting documents crimes and assessing it whether they constitute a war crime under international law, so crimes against humanity and genocide, and to stimulate international discussion about this crime in this context, and to mobilize the judiciary to act. In order to achieve this purpose, we took 2 paths. First of all, we started a very broad archival research aimed in particular at identifying victims and specific crimes. And the second path was about legal analysis, conspects, and here special thanks to Professor Albin Esse. So under Justice 2.0, we also dealt with different totalitarian crimes, among others, persecution of Turkish minority in Bulgaria. However, the priority in these projects were genocides that were committed in border areas, because war divided Europe. However, victims of this Iron Curtain did not only come from Eastern Europe, these were also citizens of Western Europe. So the main objective and idea behind this project was this concept that legal qualification of this crimes is a crime against humanity in general. So another element of Justice 2.0 is dissemination of this knowledge. So we are coming back to raising awareness about totalitarian crimes in Europe. One of the main examples of this crime is Harmut Stout's case. So maybe it's worth mentioning a few words about this young man. An 18-year-old, hardly graduated from a secondary school. He always dreamt to continue his education in a music university, but because of his origins, because he was considered to be a bourgeois, he wasn't able to follow this education in Germany, in Eastern Germany. So in pursuit of his dreams, he chose a different path. He went through Czechoslovakia. He wanted to escape to Austria to make his dreams come true. However, at the Czech border, there were dogs who captured him. They were released by the army, and he was so badly injured that he died as a result. So one of the examples of disseminating this kind of information is this installation made in front of the European Parliament. So one of the ways of remembering those victims is also the series of Justice 2.0 films. There are also several publications and ways of disseminating outcomes of our project, and uncovering Harmut Stout's sculpture in Bratislava. However, we have some very tangible results, meaning different investigations. So in Poland 2017 and Germany 2017, and recently also in Romania. We can also see an investigation that was initiated in order to investigate crimes committed by communist authorities on its own citizens. And as an example, we can mention Miloš Jakuš, who was one of the main politicians in the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia. In addition, an additional result of our activities was the resolution of 19 September 2019, which states that judging these people by courts is also very important. These people have to be judged. However, there are some more outcomes, such as rehabilitation of different victims. Until now, among others in the Czech Republic and in Slovakia, victims who were charged and condemned based on political charges could not be rehabilitated and cleaned out of those charges. However, this has changed, and the platform also supports this path for victims to become rehabilitated. In addition, they can also claim some compensation. At the moment, they are really small, but we act towards increasing these payments to reflect the losses that both the victims and their families really incurred. However, I'd like to focus at the last result of Justice 2.0 result. This is the project that the Memory and Conscience project platform focused. It's about creating a database of victims. So it is to contain the data of all victims from both sides of the Iron Curtain, also in the Eastern Bloc. It is very important because there are many victims, such as Trautmanns, which have never been recognized. We don't know them. They are hidden somewhere in documents. So first of all, we want to make them known, disseminate information about them, but also we want to fight for their rights. So currently in Victims of the Iron Curtain database, we have over 200 names, and together we work on increasing this number. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We enter the stage with Jacek Dukaj. We need to remove our masks because it's difficult to speak through them, but we'll keep our distance. I'm not joking. The times are dire, we just need to do it. Thank you very much for these presentations. We wanted to show you several aspects of solidarity activities which have been discussed during the forum. Justice 2.0 is an example of the project that is facing the past and the future. The Kominek Forum is an example of an initiative that reunites youths in looking into the future, learning from the past. The futuristic outlook is very important for today. Solidarity post-writing is the topic of our meeting. Our guest is Jacek Dukaj, the author of the book Post-writing. You probably know who Jacek Dukaj is, the author of Black Oceans, Crowy, many books and novels, awardee of many literary awards. The old axolotl has just been translated into a series by Netflix. And as I hear, the second season is now being produced. The post-writing is a description of the world where we have a changed communication between people with the transfer of experiences. And we're going to talk about it in the context of solidarity. Solidarity not with a capital S, but solidarity as an attitude, as a community experience. Because solidarity is linked to some experience, some attitude and communication. So let's start. Can I ask you, well, should we use honorific forms or get less formal? Well, let's be less formal. Jacek, you present three big periods in history. The first one is the oral era, where people communicated mainly through oral language, mainly or exclusively. Then we have the era of writing, which is now ending, and now we are facing the post-writing era. Can you tell us more about it? Yes, this is a division of the human history based on one criterion, namely the way in which we communicate our thoughts, reflections, experiences. And for our consideration of solidarity here today, the main thing is the impact. During the oral period, when we could only rely on spoken language, on oral communication, which could happen only if we coincided in time and space, there was no way to encapsulate the message in symbols, the communication was probably limited to very down-to-earth issues, no abstract. We would be talking about this table, this part of the floor, this space, this particular person that I could indicate, something that I can ostensibly define with writing. We can go beyond time and place, so somebody can come after us 100 years later, read what we've been talking about, and then the impact it had on the way of thinking. Symbols are not something that we experience with our senses, it's something that we experience with our intelligence. Intellect, solidarity as a concept, is not something that I can indicate or bite into or taste. It's an idea that emerged in our minds, and we learned to think through symbols, symbols that are based on other symbols, complex symbols, but these are very complex ways of thinking that people from the oral period could not actually access. And there's been some experiences, experiments showing that this was actually the case with peoples who still don't use writing. So we are still dealing with language, either written or oral. But now we come to the moment in which, due to technology, we don't have to resort to symbols at all. If I want to pass on an experience of an Amazon river in the rainforest, I don't need to talk to you about it, I don't need to describe it, I don't need to write it down and send it to you. I can make a picture or I can record a movie and you can see it. So now we are entering into the world where the experience of holiday might be more important than holiday itself, and sharing this experience. Well, what is the percentage of people who would prefer, instead of experiencing a safari or a trip to Himalayas, to just convince everybody else on Instagram, on Facebook, that they have been there and that they have experienced it? Would you rather to experience it and nobody to know about it, or would you not experience it, but for everybody to be able to see that you've been there? So the way in which we transfer these packages of experience through sound and image, and how it's reflected in how we see it reflected in the eyes of other people who see our experience, who assess our experience, this is becoming more and more important. In the context of solidarity, there are several aspects that we can talk about. So since we've introduced the three periods of human history, solidarity is something that we can talk about only if we are the children of writing, so to speak, where if we have been raised in these ways of thinking, educated in these ways of thinking. So the question is whether we could be talking about solidarity in the future, in the post-writing era. Perhaps in the future people won't be able to talk about solidarity, but the solidarity still be somewhere, manifesting somewhere, but it won't be written down. At the beginning, we had the solidarity of the tribe, the solidarity of the family, based on being in the same time and place. Solidarity that was possible in the oral period, in the hunter-gatherers' times. Then, the transition that happened in the 18th and 19th century, where it became natural to think in terms of a nation, social class, made people, en masse, even workers, to discuss concepts such as solidarity together with groups that they didn't experience directly, that they didn't see. The solidarity as a social movement also indicates to this aspect that there's been a certain shift in communicating with people and groups that we are not able to see, but we have a concept that they are also workers, that they are sharing in our experience, sharing in our destiny. So we are actually basing our experience on common denominator, and this is the solidarity that transcends this primal family and tribe-based solidarity. But what happens when we no longer need to use symbols, when we no longer use nations, we no longer talk about class? We're coming back to direct experience of contact with other people, but this contact is being mediated. And now I would like to problematize solidarity itself. Perhaps this is a heresy, but Kołakowski started it when he challenged the value of solidarity as something good. Let's say solidarity among the mafia, the mob. From the point of view of solidarity itself, it's good. You don't give out the secrets of your crime pals, or you may be experiencing solidarity up to a point where you're actually covering for bad deeds of other people, even though you're a good person, but you feel solidarity with them. So you're actually enmeshed in crime, and then you do the act. This has often been used by the Nazi propaganda. Heinrich Himmler had this very famous speech where he argued, I know what it does to your souls. I know that murdering children, women, etc. is not a good deed. But imagine, is there any bigger sacrifice than sacrificing your soul? Those who go to the front lines in the war, they are sacrificing their bodies, but your sacrifice is bigger. So he was actually tapping into the deepest layers of solidarity among humans, but that was the solidarity in evil, and that was what Kołakowski pointed out to. Now we can also see that you can have solidarity through evil, through technology that, for example, makes us feel extreme emotions, polarize us through different techniques. We still again feel solidarity based on lifestyle about the tribes, the new tribes, political tribes, social tribes that are dividing Poland, UK, America, but we have different names. We have law and justice, and those who are anti-law and justice. In America we have Trumpists, anti-Trumpists, but the mechanism of creating these or emerging these very cohesive groups is the same. First, we have technologies that enhance the polarization. They create tribalism, and then within these tribes we have very strong group solidarity. Yes. When we understand writing like this, not many people are now thinking about writing being a technology, a human technology, which has actually had an impact on humans. It's not good or bad in itself. We have invented writing. It serves us some purposes, but it also has other impacts. Now we have other technologies creating new possibilities. What about the ways of thinking? Now we are conceptualizing solidarity. But from what you've said, it's clear that in Poland, when we talk about solidarity, we always think good. And then Leszek Kołakowski and other thinkers indicate that solidarity can be in evil. So, but we have this tendency to think about solidarity as a good thing. So what will happen in the post-writing time? Are we going to be stuck into our echo chambers, into our groups, social groups, where we communicate, where we are able to communicate our experiences? Or perhaps, if we have a solidarity as an ontological being, we'll be able to experience something else. What is most worrying in the post-writing era is that we're going to get stuck in our bubbles, where we can exchange the same experiences, but we will not be able to experience solidarity outside of these bubbles, and these bubbles will just be on the collision course.
So there are two questions. One is about this modern understanding of solidarity from the 19th century. Initially, it was only related to legal and financial terms. So in Latin, solidatio was related to loan and paying it off. So if one spouse wasn't able to pay it off, the second one had to. So this understanding was somewhere in the mid-19th century, and then there was this like understanding of human love between people. So solidatio obligatio, and here we got this idea of solidarity, and in this broad context today, we understand it as empathy, where all human beings all over the world, they all deserve my taxes, my charity, living with me and sharing my fate as citizens of this state. So derivative is opening boundaries, letting refugees in, and no boundaries to cultural exchange. Because if there is nothing that makes me and you and neighbor from a different village different, even for people living in a totally different continent, they are all the same, and we have all the same empathy. Why would I pay taxes only for one country, not for the whole world? Why wouldn't I live anywhere in the world and vote in any legal system? Well, here we could make a counter-thesis that in solidarity there is this fact. It includes that people are different, and solidarity is about overcoming boundaries. So it is to overcome the bubbles, but it does not negate their existence. So I don't need to lose my individuality, my identity, because we also have ethnic identities, but I don't need to lose my individuality. I need to overcome it, to reach my hand out to someone else. Is this what is going to happen in the post-writing era? I'll just tell you that you can comment what we are saying here on Facebook, and we'll try to fish out at least a few of them and ask some questions to our guests, perhaps at the end of this discussion. So coming back to our discussion, so is solidarity really assuming an existence of a community of groups that feel somehow related and the need of overcoming these bubbles? Is it going to be even more difficult or even more easy in this post-writing thesis? So is there any distinction in identity? So it is about trying to define boundaries for solidarity, for not really as a term, but as a thesis. So are we, as humans, able to create solidarity with absolutely everything, with this abstract construct as a humankind, without any distinctive features? And we are talking here about all generations of humankind, the past and the future generations. So experiences until today, from social and technological experiences, experiments on society, prove that there needs to be some distinctive feature to make you feel a member of a certain group, lifestyle, a certain cultural bubble, in contrast to something that does not belong there. And this is used in all campaigns that use modern communication campaigns. If you can make a clear cut, we are here, they are there, we are against something, or we are better than the others, or even better, we despise them because we feel superior to them and better. And our feel of despise is well justified. And we are we feel solidarity in this despise towards the other group. And I think that this is the most common theme in online solidarity, solidarity in despise. I don't think this is the kind of solidarity we are dreaming about in the future, but experiencing solidarity, this phenomenon that we can research through sociological studies as a concept, it indicates to our anthropological conditioning that humankind evolved in this way, and we are guided by by fear rather than trust and opening our arms to transcending our own limitations and our own group. So this overcoming is a derivative of our intellectual thought, thinking about a nation, human dignity, and humankind. But at this anthropological point of view, what is imprinted in our genes, it's more about creating certain reflexes and basing our instincts on what is suspicious, different, and not good. So when we stop thinking on the way that is based on writing, we come back to this naked sensing and feeling. I don't think it will be easier to overcome our prejudice. I'm skeptical here. But we are not leaving the writing overnight. It started already once the writing was created. No, of course not. But I never expected it to happen that quickly. Even the situation that was forced by pandemics, different constraints related to COVID, Zoom, Skype, experience of everything all online. It is a kind of a certain group, but it's online. So we are an individual, a monad that is handled and serviced by technology. So initially, solidarity was very primitive. It was an animal against the nature. For an animal to survive, it needs to get into a herd, a tribe, some group with a certain mythology. Now, when we can survive thanks to technology on our own individually, why would we group ourselves in tribes and clans? Well, your story is somehow supported with anthropological thoughts, so social-biological sense of humankind as every living creature has a need to survive. This is what we need. We need to proliferate and be reborn. So many could disagree with that, saying that human is someone more, something more, someone who tries to find some meaning of life. Viktor Frankl wrote very nicely about the meaning of life. He survived the Auschwitz camp, and in different psychological experiences from survivors of this camp, this attitude that it wasn't this naked biology that decided about their survival. Very often it was a coincidence, but the fact that I was lucky and survived, that was necessary, but not the only. The other condition was that I had to have this feeling of a sense. So this sense of feeling means that human mentality trespasses the social, biological, and anthropological way of thinking, that I'm not only motivated by surviving and having children. No, it is about surviving and so on. So examples of Maximilian Kolbe and other people who gave their life away deny it. So this level of evolution, of economy evolution, and people who also have different motivations, they are motivated by religion or inspiration. So you mentioned moving from the solidarity post-writing to biological base of humankind. Absolutely not. But the way how technology affects people, this experience of humankind clashing the technology, is described in biology, response of big biological groups. So it comes from evolutional biology, so huge businesses, Google, Facebook, based on that, because they learn how to manipulate individuals in this way and masses online in those online communities. What I'm saying here is not a controversial assessment of these activities. This is what we know about human nature. This is how it is affected. We know that for sure. We are not sure if it is not reducing humankind. And we have a question from Edwin Bendick. In modern society, the main medium of solidarity in social dimension became the state with its system of services, social services, progressive system, and etc. So the question is how solidarity in this post-writing society is supported by Jacek. So isn't the state here a mean to extend technology? If the state provides me with all this, myself, I don't need to act by myself or feel the solidarity with others and be involved in that, because this is handled from outside. So I'm forced to be united and feel this solidarity. This is the classic argument of the great inquisitor. Is it better to be forced from outside to make you good, or is it better not to have good at all? If you act by solidarity, but you are forced to that, and you don't feel it yourself, but the result of your actions is this technologized solidarity, is it better to have it or not to have it at all? This picture of solidarity created by the state, by technology, etc. If this is to be efficient and continues to develop, at a certain point, this very idea of solidarity, even if we are able to have this abstract thinking, will become hollow. Because why? For what? Why would I be? Why would I feel solidarity with others if it is all provided by legal acts and so on? So this experience of living in pandemics, being handled by the state, by technology, it's not only pandemics. Pandemics made it much broader, the empowerment of the city, their powers. So it teaches us to rely on the state. So I really doubt that this experience will totally disappear once the pandemics finishes very quickly and smoothly. This experience will stay in society, and this way of thinking about generally speaking procedure and technology, it has been growing ever since the Second World War. That is the moment when this industrial thinking, procedural thinking on big scale entered different areas of life, not only industry, school, social life, everything started to be created. And now it is very difficult to find strong arguments, value-based elements against that. So we might think, I feel people might be worse only to keep some old conservative values. This is this hardcore argument of conservatives. Oh, in old times we had this knighthood values, chivalry. So otherwise he would be killed by a bear. But the consequences were that they died, they were hungry, and they had poor living conditions. But the same could be said about solidarity.
There might be space for practicing solidarity, but until these needs are not satisfied and fulfilled by technology and procedures. Once they are, why solidarity? Why I should feel solidarity? What you said about Franco and Jordan Peterson developed this very nicely. Even if you live in a luxurious technology bubble, you are being serviced by online banking, by pizza delivery, internet connection, etc., etc., you still need to have your spiritual needs satisfied, both at the physical and spiritual level. And that's what the mass and technology mediated entertainment serves. You don't have a family, but there are families in a series that you like to watch. Every evening you can actually watch something that would provide you with this experience of having a family. Well, this is controversial. At least at this stage of technological progress that we are now, perhaps direct transfers of experience are not as strong as they would be in the future, but there are still people who say that family life in real life and family life on TV are different. Well, the post-writing systems are to work towards people being as tamed as pets. It's very difficult to say for these electronic cows. This is a quote, to maximize human potential. The author is Harari, 21 lessons for the 21st century. If it's so, there will be no place for solidarity in its good aspects. What do you think? Well, it's not only the question about whether it's good or bad. But is it good or bad? Let us go back to the example. Is it good or bad that we no longer need to hunt for bears using spears, or we no longer need to be chivalrous because the circumstances are no longer there? Well, conservatists don't like such questions because they believe that even though technology is introducing changes, universal values, the good is ontologically valid and solid. Well, but good is not a value in itself, but it is a way of giving value to specific things, that this is good or this is bad, because we have a concept of good, generally speaking. But what is good and what is bad is changing depending on the culture, on the life circumstances. Well, we're talking about technologies. Hunting bear with spear is not very efficient because you can get hurt as you do it. There are more efficient technologies of getting your food right now. Well, we could talk about animal raising, animal farms. So now we have animals being farmed, no longer hunted. They are living in cages. Well, technology is neutral in itself. It can be put to good or bad use. I don't agree with that. I think there are technologies whose mere existence and our awareness that they are there change the network of our acts and values. Yes, they do have an impact on the network of our acts or deeds or thoughts, but they are not good or bad in itself. Well, the technology and using this technology, specific technologies, have measurable impact which can be valorized as good or bad. In the classical book Technopolis, there are quotes from the dialogues with Plato, where Plato sees writing, and there is the whole pitch about writing, that you can use writing for remembering things, and then the counter-argument is that words are will no longer be valid. People will no longer use their memory because they can write down everything. Well, but after we pass on to the culture based on writing, the changes that occurred, we started to see them as good, and people who will be born in the post-writing era, who are not going to use writing at all, they will also revalorize the changes and will look at us as maniacs who quite inexplicably really insisted on using writing. What will be natural then would be thinking through direct experience, something that we can see, that we can feel, something that we can share. I will be able to go into your experience, and this is the deepest humanism. I can share your experience in life, and thinking in abstracts, in symbols, is actually a cold, robotic, machine kind of thinking. It's not humanity. I'm just trying to sketch what it could look like for you when we reverse it. Well, as long as the transfer of experience is real. Well, when you look at the screen and you see what other people are seeing, what do you experience is a transfer of the visual experience. Well, I experience what the other person wants me to see and not what they are experiencing. They are still presenting. Well, but tell me, where do your internal experiences come from? Do you have any other channel apart from your senses to fuel them? Well, yes, that might be right. Let me make a turn in this discussion, because here we are in a place that was important for the history of Solidarity. The Solidarity was born here in this center, Zajezdnia History Center. During the forum, we are looking in the history of Solidarity for inspiration for our future and activities. So let me ask an abstract question. The history of Polish Solidarity movement, something that we experience and think about as something pretty exceptional, quite justifiably. This history, experience, transferred, can it have any kind of validity in the post-writing era? And more generally, can history have any impact and any importance for people in the post-writing era? But what is history in itself? Does it exist outside of the narrative of a human about what happened in the past? Well, history is a story. We can ponder what historians are saying. The classical definition of history is that there is some objective truth in which we believe. But the experience of what it might have been like is mediated through a story. Either you hear somebody or you have an internal narrator who tells you what it was like 200 years ago, etc. And the question is whether we will have such a narrator in the post-writing era. Who's going to tell us about the 1980s in Poland? Well, we are now experiencing a very specific kind of narratives, historic narratives, audio-visual. For example, the Vikings, the series, what connection it has with what really happened. But people are watching these series, they are experiencing a kind of encounter with history. It's educational, it's anecdotal, but the feeling is that we know what they lived like, how they fought, what they ate, etc. So the question is, what kind of history can be practiced only through visual experiences? So we're not talking about thick books where you have specific concepts, tables, technological, financial, ideological trends and tendencies, but let's imagine an experience based on senses alone. The king comes in, kisses the princess, fights this and this person. Is it history? Well, we reconstruct history, and we reconstruct it either closer to what it used to be like or further away from it. So we face a necessity of describing a bit of history within a universe of events, of people, of characters, of something that happened, or maybe we should say of something that was described, because we need to select what we talk about. And we have the history of Solidarity in Poland, and the narrative has been pretty cohesive. There are some disagreements about Lech Wałęsa, etc., etc. But on the other hand, we do have a big grand narrative of a big social movement united around specific values and against the communism communism and aiming at overcoming the regime. It was a peaceful revolution. That's kind of grand narrative that everybody subscribed to. Will this kind of narratives be possible in the post-writing era, or would it be time where people who still remember this can only transfer this to people who can only mediate, who can experience these kind of information in a different way?
So it is not really related to post-writing. It is about the moment when the last surviving member, witness died, and you start relying on interpretations. So this is hardcore work from historians, but what we get when the story is reduced to an audiovisual form of entertainment is increasingly adapted to what viewers expect, because game series that are attractive for us, that are willingly watched or played in, they replace those that are not attractive. So any criteria of truth in any historical methodology are meaningless, and in a way we already have a situation with the very recent history, the Second World War, the way Hollywood and alikes narrated about the Second World War, where they stressed and where they turned a blind eye to facts. It made a general experience for people who can neither remember that through their own experiences or someone from their family. So it won't be really this history that counts, it will be rather a narrative about it. Well, this is what has already happened. This is what you said about stories. This is the way we create this story about solidarity. This is how it is perceived outside, and this is what we feel outside. There is always a difference in the narrative. So can history be an inspiration after the post-writing as solidarity with the capital S will be present in history, or will it disappear? It is a question to the culture. If it is needed in a way, if a business can be built, or if it can be used in political terms, it will be used in different ventures. If not, it will be forgotten. So now I would ask some questions. If from among numerous comments there is anything that can be taken out and asked. If there is a good and bad solidarity, as you mentioned, how are these qualifications defined? Because you also say that you...
Komentarz jest urwany, ale jeśli dobrze rozumiem, good and bad are hard to define, so we wondered how you define good and bad solidarity, because we think the border between these two concepts could be vague. Jest to pytanie właściwie o dodefiniowanie tego.
So it is about defining it even more, this division to good and bad solidarity. I think it is about solidarity that can be used in different ways, for different purposes, in different societies, based on different ethical values, because inside every group, solidarity is, of course, a virtue. The mafiosos also think their solidarity is a positive thing. From their point of view, it's not a bad feature. For people outside who categorize badly the mob people, they can also categorize it in a different way. There is an honor involved. So it's not about having good and bad solidarity. It is that the same value, the same experience, or the same phenomenon, the same type of relationships can be set in different contexts and thus used for different purposes. But there is a bigger problem here, is the fact that there is the necessity of solidarity, being united and taking efforts towards some purposes. Isn't that a sign of deficit, which is satisfied increasingly by the state and technology, as Bendik mentioned? The second thing is what technologies do to us. They learned to play on us and create divisions, make us tribes, and try to make these divisions. Good solidarity, bad solidarities, they are efficient because these actions are efficient. This is how we create our identities. We are very united. We feel great solidarity in our online groups. Yes, and we are no longer able to notice other groups. Are there any more comments? I hope that my guest answered your question. Answered these questions. I think we are no longer going to quote any other comments. My impression here is, if I can make a side remark, on what you do here in the center and what it is used for, and what its goal. Isn't that a situation that, in fact, in your own way, limited by technology and this building, aren't you trying to build a certain fiction of the past where future generations will be able to get into? Oh, that's a very good question. I would answer yes. However, I understand the word fiction a little bit as a literary fiction. It is not about forging history, making it false. Every narration about the past is a fiction, because it is not possible to make a one-to-one copy of what happened 50 years ago, unless we have this technology of transferring sessions that will enable us to move everything to virtual reality. So I agree with you, because every story is a kind of a fiction. However, it doesn't have to mean that it's forged or false. You can make fake history. You can research the facts, the history, and you can falsify situation. However, you can't have this one-to-one experience. You can't say every second from every part of the world. Whenever we choose what we are going to talk about and what stays undescribed is a moment of constructing a narrative, and we have this awareness. So let me continue now in this dialogue of your aim and the ways you develop it by looking how this kind of centers operate. So even very traditional museums become interactive. So we used to have guides or people who read boards on the site, and now it is about people coming in and experiences. There is a scene from the epoch, they experience a piece of equipment or an item of the protagonist of this exhibition. So everything is to be very tangible. We are to experience everything. Why do we do that? Because this is the way people want to sense it. This is attractive, so this wins. So if you want to be efficient in your statutory role, you already do that. I can see the way your exhibitions are constructed. You will need to move on to this way of presenting your history. Of course, transfer of experiences, something that dominates our epoch, is the way of communicate. If we are to be heard, we need to speak a language that is understood. By the way, I'd like to invite you to see our exhibition. The pot is on strike. In the post-writing words, where individuality is redefined, will there be a place for solidarity following on and speculated? Is super artificial IE can take this idea of solidarity? That's a totally different story. We can assume different things, different theories about how AI is going to develop. We cannot now claim that it's going to be based on a specific model of thinking. If it's going to self-develop and have access to human knowledge base, it will develop in a way that's going to be decided by itself. This is the key question in the AI development scheme, is on what kind of thinking scheme is the AI going to be based, and what will be the foundation for the next generations of AI. And this is the question of what China and US are going to be
doing in terms of AI, the civilizations that could base AI, that they develop on different patterns. That's the problem that we are facing right now, and there is no answer to that question before the technology is fully developed. We cannot speculate about it in abstract way, but this is a completely different matter. Yes, coming back to our institution, yes, we are based on dialogue, using the language that our viewers, our audience uses, and I would like to point out that in my understanding of reality, probably created by the writing era, there is something, there is truth and there is something that is false, and the fictional narrative does not have to be false. It's a reconstruction. So what is fiction? Yes, and this is a kind of solution. When we speak about solidarity, when we choose this topic for this year, we aim at our audience, at people who come here to live through solidarity as we want to present it here, according to our narrative, according to our way of transferring our understanding of solidarity in contemporary times. And what is your understanding of solidarity? Well, yes. We should remind ourselves that here in the Remembrance and Future Forum, we tend to be historians, culture experts, and the solidarity narrative has been, in this context, transferred in this classic kind of way. So, solidarity is here understood as entering into an interaction with somebody who needs our help. And solidarity also has a group value. So this is a kind of charity or mercy kind of activity. Well, yes, it is getting close to the Christian understanding of charity and mercy, as St. Thomas used to say. Well, and that's exactly what's problematic in the classical 19th take on solidarity, which was supposed to be the expression of the love of humanity. So we're using a concept that has a long tail of theological connotations. And then we can speak about compassion based on united values, universal for the whole humanity, without referring to a specific person. And then the later versions of solidarity from the 20th century always had a cause, an aim for which we unite. We always unite in order to achieve something. Yes, this is the 20th century understanding, but there is a relationship. As I understand solidarity, it's not a universal kind of concept, the universal love of humanity, which means we are blurring the differences, we are blurring the boundaries. No, it's linked to a kind of community that we are creating, and also it's a call for going beyond the limits of the community. Let's imagine we have Facebooks, we have circles of friends, and there are algorithms which govern them, which make us see posts made by people who are in a way similar to us. We are kind of encapsulated in this bubble, and the other bubbles are becoming more and more foreign. Solidarity occurs in our bubble. So if something bad happens to somebody from our bubble, the child gets sick, so we all chip in. But also solidarity should inspire us to go beyond the bubble, to go and see what is happening in the different bubbles. Well, this is speculation, but it's not how human nature works. It's more efficient to be experiencing solidarity with people with whom we have some relationship. There are some links. It's a kind of compassion. the possibility of compassion. Yes, we are all linked by a very basic fact that we are human, so this means solidarity with the whole humanity, but within humanity we have different nations, different interests, different communities, etc. Yes, we can speak about the circles of empathy, and there is no limit, nothing to limit us to humans only. What is now being hotly debated, the very clue, is extending the natural rights to animals. Why cannot we feel this kind of solidarity with dogs or cats? Well, perhaps solidarity should also propel us to go beyond the species. According to Mr. Dukaj, this is another question. The post-writing era has a tendency to reduce the truth or to eliminate truth. Is there a way to counteract that and to strengthen truth? What is the attitude? Well, I think it's not possible unless we are trained in intellectual thinking through symbols, in order to be able to differentiate between objective truth and something that I see and hear something, so it needs to be true. And that's our contemporary technological experience. Something that I lived is true. And we still need to differentiate between the real textured experience, that taste of truth, and the objective truth. In order to access it, I need to be able to think in abstract ways, based on specific theories of reality. I need to be able to reason and to see these two kinds of truths as ideas, comparable ideas. And to do that, I need to mediate it through writing. All right, so that was the answer to the question from the audience. We are slowly going towards the last part and the summary, if there are more questions. All right. The hidden, perhaps, agenda or aspect of this discussion, which Mr. Dukaj is openly addressing in his books and stories, isn't it the question about the stability and the changeability of the human nature? Can you discuss it in the context of solidarity? Well, yes. Satisfying the needs for which you needed solidarity negated the necessity of solidarity as a phenomenon. But the question, another question is it possible to feel solidarity with groups and individuals that are not having any kind of stable identity? It's neither here nor there. It's permanently in transition. So can you feel solidarity with somebody like this? Somebody that is the manifestation of fluidity? Probably not. I don't have a final view on this, but my preliminary reflection is that it would be very difficult to capture a person like this, either in our bubble, in the identity bubble, or in the transcended identity bubble, because we don't know whether we need to transcend any bubble. We don't know whether this person is inside or outside of the bubble. Well, perhaps this is a strategy, survival strategy in the coming post-writing era. Well, I think this problem is going to become more and more intense and political, because here we're talking about transgender people, about refugees, about belonging to a political entity, stateless people. Yes, if we can meet online, we don't need to share the same territory. Yes, the political structures, the hubs, the ancient, what used to be states, cities. If it's going to be like this, I don't know whether there will be any subject object for which we can feel solidarity. And the solidarity as something that is built upon, on our psychophysiological experiences, something that was based on a group belonging, whether it's the solidarity as a concept is going to be useful or not. Edwin Bendick, who was supposed to join us today, is asking questions. I stepped in and I will ask his question. Solidarity in the theory of solidarity is based on the relationship between people and the fact that they create societies. So there is a debt that everybody has towards society that we pay back by practicing solidarity directly and indirectly through Republic. In the post-writing period, will this codependence be eliminated? The pandemics showed us that it's changing. Well, I think the codependence is changing, but it's not predicated upon other people, but upon something that is pretty abstract, like the state technology. Once I click on something on my computer screen and something good is happening to me, then because of that, I don't feel gratefulness. Something happened in a black box, right? And the same goes for relationships that obtain in politics. More and more often, when I vote, I don't feel as an agent that my vote actually is going to change anything. Well, this is an expression of your identity. Yes, exactly. So, when do we pay back this debt? How do we do it? Just by paying taxes? This is the only way for me to be able to chip into this pool of resources for the structure, common structure, to then practice solidarity towards others. And there is nothing for me to do. Everything was done outside of me, around me, so to speak. So let's go back to the question whether it's good or bad, whether solidarity is to be an aim in itself, or whether it's just a means to an aim.
So the question from Martin Wursten: what's the role of generations in this whole process? So next generations in the whole process, we don't know what kind of processes, and I don't really know how we should understand it. So perhaps it is this process of moving to this post-writing era. Well, they are just material of becoming that. So my question is if solidarity will exist, in what way in this imminent era. So let's ask ourselves the question, if the main centers to identify politically are to be policies, so the state cities, well, this is what dominates currently this idea about developing. So in a way, come back to the ancient world, polis, maybe online, maybe not necessarily in one place, but in the same time. So perhaps we could ask a question, is this regress possible in terms of interhuman communication? You evaluated it already by using the word regress. Maybe we'll go back to the oral phase and only what I say is real. No, absolutely not. I disagree. The oral phase was based on symbolism and language and limited to one place and time. And this is passé, it's no longer existence. However, in the world when we are afraid that modern technologies in the future will create deep fakes and we'll never experience reality, so whatever happens here and now will be real. This is already happening, living the truth. So deep fake, if it is very well done, if you cannot differentiate from whatever is true in your perception, you experience this as true. So you may know that it is a deep fake, but you'll keep this experience in yourself. So there are already these political ideas as creating deep fake, showing in false but very realistic ways counter candidates. in a given situation. Everybody knows that it is a fake, but you have already seen that, you've already experienced that, and this is working in you. Okay, once I find out, I also experience something. No, not at all. Is it different? Well, one of the most fascinating things at the border of fiction and truth is that people realize that your free will is a fiction. Like, Dr. House, he is not a doctor, and still people come and ask him what to do. So there's a question, how will a post-writing education will look like, especially after the post-pandemic period? I don't know what will the post-pandemic context will be, because we are still undergoing this change. So basically the education changes very quickly now, when an increasing number of materials that is necessary to educate and self-educate is online. You don't need to enroll at any university. The only need to be admitted to a prestigious university is to get credentials and credits. The fact that you have a confirmation on paper, I studied at Cambridge and this is my diploma. The knowledge is the same, but you get some credentials that will make you earn this or that. And the second value that is just disappearing is the emergence of communities, student communities, the masters, different mentors you got your science from. It was a limited number of people who were admitted at different faculties at different years. These communities were created, and the network provided you security for the rest of your life because you belonged somewhere. I know this professor, I am a graduate of Oxford, etc. And for a long time, it was very efficient and created a hierarchy in business, politics, and science. Once there is no longer the systems to have this prestige and the knowledge is popularly available, how you can create this value? There is a void. Something needs to be developed, especially that the West culture is at the process of being substantially meritocracy. It doesn't matter where were you born, what gender you are, what race or religion you are, whether you are an athlete. It doesn't matter. It's totally egalitarian. But what gives you a very strong position in a hierarchy is this human capital. How much you yourself you can get from you when working in a corporation to give to your shareholders. This is what places you in different positions in hierarchy. And this bases very strongly on the educational system. First, you attend best nursery. Thanks to that, you get to the best kindergarten. Then you get to a good school, good college, etc., etc. And then you have different documents to confirm that you belong to this very small percentage of people who can earn a lot since the very beginning of earning. So this is the early phase of meritocracy, aristocracy, and there is no system to replace it so far. There is a huge amount of knowledge available online, but there is no system that provides you with credits. The paper confirming your prestige, how prestigious your education was. Post-writing education is an answer to whether so many specialists will be still required, educated in the system based on symbolism. So law and science, engineering, mathematics. Yes, but someone needs to operate the machinery. The question is how many people are necessary to handle this technological layer. Because when we look at flows, especially in the West, in China the situation is different. When you look at flows between different faculties and demand for different professions, there are more and more people who follow education that is not at all based on the symbolic way of thinking. Maybe this is a core an engineering corps. This number will be decreasing because technology is advancing, and the rest will operate very well based on this thinking that doesn't need abstract symbols, mathematics. Maybe this narrow group that handles machinery, who will transfer our experiences, will be the aristocracy of our future, because they will be able to control us. No, these may be nerds sitting in cellars that are in fact contempted by everyone. We are heading towards the summary. Jacek, we invited you here to discuss on solidarity post-writing. To make a summary, I'd like to ask you a question. What came to your mind when we suggested this topic to you? I thought that they don't really know themselves what they want to discuss. Because as a matter of fact, when we started our meeting, solidarity as such is an idea that is a purely abstract concept, and it cannot really be discussed in this context post-writing. You can't interview it, you can't make a film of it, you can't hear it. That's the first problem. The second thing is whether the technologies that make post-writing era possible, will they not exclude the necessity for solidarity to exist? And secondly, whether will they not get us used to getting the fact that solidarity is taking on the bad nature, bad sides of our nature, on phobias and tribalism and dividing from others, so these negative aspects. So showing one's superiority. And within this group, we feel strong solidarity. But is this the solidarity we want? So these are these very direct associations I have regarding solidarity post-writing. The meta theme here is whether solidarity as such, is it good? And if it is needed, is transcending this idea of solidarity, transcending the fact that it exists, that it is executed in society, that this is the way we think and act. Is it going to be good that we don't need solidarity anymore? And with this question, I'm going to leave you this evening. So thank you very much. I would like to thank Jacek Dukaj, our guest tonight. I'd like to thank everyone who followed different meetings and debates that were held this year in correlation with Remembrance and Future Forum. Today, we allowed ourselves to have this quite futuristic discussion related to the world that perhaps will emerge in the future with new generations in new technology. I would insist that it is today. It was Jacek Dukaj who said, who wrote the post-writing book. So I encourage everyone to read his books as well, other books. So one in a year from now, the second edition of Remembrance and Future Forum. What form? Will it be a transfer online or a real conservative way of meeting in our Center for History Zajezdnia? We are still inviting you, so have a good evening.